Hello, and welcome back to a new season of Gardener's World, and welcome back to Longmeadow. After a very long, wet and grey winter here, suddenly the garden is positively bursting out into spring. The daffodils here in the orchard have all started flowering just in the last few days. These are the wild narcissi that I first planted a quarter of a century ago, and they're still bringing me joy every single year. I've made other more recent changes. This winter I added some big hornbeam balls in amongst the apple trees, and I'll talk more about those another day. But there are lots of changes and lots of things to be getting on with. Now, one of the first big jobs of the gardening year for me, particularly when the sun is shining and there is a feeling that we're moving away from winter, is to cut back the grasses in the grass border. So the grasses look really good from June right through till at least the new year, and that's the magic of them. Because when the rest of the garden is dying back from September onwards, the grass borders are looking brilliant. And at the same time, they're giving brilliant cover for a whole range of wild animals. I found hedgehogs hibernating in the grass borders, and mice of all kinds, let alone all the invertebrates, ladybirds and beetles and one thing or another. So very good for wildlife, looks great in the garden, and really easy on the gardener. Very, very low maintenance. But it is important that at this time of year, you do the one big thing, which is to cut them all back, except for the evergreen grasses. Now, if you have evergreen grasses like this steeper, this is a steeper gigantea, just run your hand through and tease out any dead material, but put on some gloves because the green can be very sharp. Ow, you see I cut myself then. You've got to be a bit careful. So put on a pair of good stout gloves, staunch the flow of blood, and off you go. But most of these grasses are deciduous, can be cut hard back to the ground, and you either do it with a pair of shears, or I have done it before with a hedge cutter, which works perfectly well. And the time to do it is once you see the new growth, which can be early February. You don't want to do it when the new growth gets too long, because you don't want to cut that back. So this is a miscanthus. And you can see the flower heads are still on, relatively small because it was so incredibly dry last summer. Miscanthus are very tough. They'll grow in almost any conditions, but they need a little bit more water than they got last summer. No new growth at the bottom, so I can just get in there and cut like that. I cut to the ground, clear it away, and take it to the compost heap. Another way of doing it is called chop and drop. So you can do it with grasses, you can do it with any plant that's got dead stems still standing in winter, like this Rebecca. And what you do is, instead of cutting at the base and then clearing it away, you just cut it bit by bit down and let the pieces fall wherever they may. And they stay on the ground as a mulch. But I'm going to finish this and clear it all away because there is another stage I want to go through. I want to weed it, because this is the big opportunity to do that. And then when I'm happy with weeding, I want to mulch it. But first, we're going to go from a garden which has been here now for over 30 years to a brand new garden, or at least a brand new plot, and a very excited Adam.
See that? That is one very excited face. I am like a kid in a sweet shop. I have a new garden to play with. October we moved in, and to be fair, it looked a lot better then than it does now. It's amazing, isn't it, how much mess you can make with a digger. It's 20 metres wide by about 50 metres long. The first job was to get the space measured up and down on paper. so that I have an actual scale plan to work with. What I've done is divided it into basically 4 spaces. The first one really, I suppose, let's call it the family garden. You know, it connects back with the house. I'll wrap that around with planting, and then there'll be a lovely little raised pool that sits on that side. And then a nice big simple lawn, and you can see I've started to add these trees going through the space. Big borders each side, nice simple area for the dogs and the family. Right, so now we're off down the garden path. There's going to be a little brick edge all the way along here. We'll get halfway down the path, and then we're just going to have a little seating area, maybe 2 little rockers, and what this will benefit from is the sunset, which is over there. So it's going to be incredible just looking over the planting and then into the distance. And then we'll carry on that journey. And then at the moment, I've got to jump down. Boom. So I'm now what? My knee height. So you're talking about sort of 2 foot down, so about 600. But this is a good place to explain how the garden was when I got here. If you imagine, it was just a slope that disappeared to that water. That water over there is flooding off the field. The river runs along the bottom, and then when it does burst its banks, it comes into the space. So what I've done is I've created this sort of series of terraces. So if the water eventually does come in, it will push it all that way and it won't come into the garden. You are now, though, you're in the herb garden, so we're talking herbs, fruit, maybe the occasional little veg. But I'm stood in my, what will be eventually, my new greenhouse. Really simple space, but very, very immersive. You know, when you're going to be in the planting here. A few weeks ago, I actually started work and prepared the ground for some bare root hedging. The hedges I'm going to use to obviously either side of the garden, but then also to divide the garden, are hornbeam. So conditions-wise, where I live, you know, east side of the country, so actually summers can be very, very dry. But then at winter, down at that river, and you can see where that water's holding, that could well be wet down the end of the garden. And hornbeam are a good tree because they'll deal with so many conditions. So when it comes to actually looking after these as they grow and mature, I'll choose the height that I want first of all, but then I'm going to keep them quite crisp and clean. And not only will that then work either side of the garden, but also as I divide the spaces and break the areas up, it becomes the backdrop, you know, for the soft, bellowy planting. They say the best time to plant a tree was yesterday, and I've already made a start. Trees will be integral to the garden, and getting them in the ground, in the right place, early on, is vital. So that line is 90 degrees to the house. But what this allows me to do is start to set out the final few trees for this space. I talk about soil being the most important thing in the garden. This was an old farmyard. So in places, literally, old stones and bricks. Hey, get the jacket off. I'm digging a hole. It's probably twice the size of the root ball. And I'm not talking about depth, just talking about width. The fact, actually, that it's a square hole is important as well. If you imagine clay soil, you dig a hole that's just slightly bigger than your root ball, your container, you slot it in, your roots start to go, and they go round and round in a circle, you know? By doing this, as the roots get out, they'll get to the corner, and then ultimately they'll take themselves out and they will cement the tree into the ground. Interestingly, in the tree world now, there's lots of conversation about whether you should put any compost, well-rotted manure in the bottom of the hole. Partly because what you want to do is you want that tree to work hard. You know, you want that tree to put on good young fibrous root. And if I make that area too much of a happy place, what you'll find is the roots won't go searching, and that's what we want. It's interesting when you're sort of choosing trees. I think a lot of the time we're sucked into the tree that we really want, you know, whether it's a silver birch, whether it's a ginkgo, and then we work out where to put it. Whereas this itself it's a nut, it's a hazelnut. And this will be beautiful because it will sit at the end of the border. I can control that growth, but also there's going to be a path that comes across the bottom of the garden, and this will sit at the end of that path. Why I've gone for multi-stem, actually, because it will be slightly smaller. So it's going to sit in the border, so I could leave it 4 or 5 years, and then I could coppice it back to the ground. So let's get it in. It's covered and wrapped in hessian. You don't have to take that off, it's biodegradable, so that will just break down. What I am going to do, before I start planting, I'm just going to free this tree. So I've got the face where I want it. We can start filling in. I just heel that in. I'll water it in, but I won't give it too much at the moment. What you'll remember is any new tree, you know, you're planting over the winter, going into March, the further you get into the season, the more water that plant is going to need. So I will make sure right through the year I'm out here and I'm checking these trees every day. I think there's something magical about planting trees. So I've put an awful lot of thought into exactly where they're going. And when I plant and plan, it tends to be one tree gets placed and the other trees are driven from that tree. And that was a ginkgo. The ginkgo, which is a beautiful tree, but it needs space, that will sit as a standalone focal point. But all the time I'm building, I'm thinking about shapes and forms. And also, the beautiful thing about it, in reality as well, is you're not just planting for you and the family. You could well be planting for another generation. Look at that. Can you imagine the first time I saw this at the end of the garden? I mean, I've created gardens for lots of people, literally all over the world, and also at home for my family. But this has got to be the most exciting garden I've ever created. And it's just lovely that I'm going to be able to take you with me.
I can remember that excitement when I first came here. That sense of creating something. And look at me here. 36 years later, I'm still doing it. So, can't wait to see how that develops. What I'm doing here is much more prosaic. Having cut back the grasses, cleared everything away, that's gone to the compost heap. So I've used the opportunity just to have a bit of a weed through. Now this is couch grass. It's a really successful plant. And once it gets established, it takes over. And couch grass is something that will work its way into the roots of other plants. That's its real problem in a border. If it works its way into perennials or shrubs, let alone into hedges, it's almost impossible to get out. And it's quite brittle. So if you leave any little bit of it in the ground, it will reproduce. So we try and take out as much of that and burn it. Don't put it on the compost heap. And I've got a nettle in here. Now, I'm avoiding getting stung because nettles in spring sting like nothing else. But what you can see are these very characteristic yellow roots, and it's the yellow that gives them away. Now, with nettles, if you cut the top off, that can go into the compost heap. But the roots of nettles, of couch grass and bindweed, burn them and then put the ash on the compost heap. And if you can't have a fire, then put them into green waste. But there you are, a glorious nettle. Not wanted in this part of the garden. It's worth pointing out that we do keep nettles on the fringe of the garden because they're brilliant for caterpillars. So don't regard them as always being a weed. It's just the wrong plant in the wrong place. Then it becomes a weed. Now, here on the grass borders, I'm going to mulch with pine bark. And I use it especially here on the grass borders for two reasons. Because it is slightly acidic and low fertility. Because grasses don't like too much fertility, and our soil here is very fertile. So if I mulch this with farmyard manure, we get too much lush growth, and that's not good for grasses. So I'm just using this. We're keeping the moisture in, we're keeping the weeds down, but not enriching the soil too much. So it lasts a long time. So I only do this every other year. And also, when it breaks down, it really lightens the heavy soil. It's a big mistake to mulch half-heartedly. If you're going to mulch at all, you really want to aim at 2 inches, sort of 4 centimetres minimum, because that is what you need to block the light and stop evaporation. Do it now, do it in spring. That's partly because you can see where you're going. Don't mulch over the top of existing growth. And then the beauty of this stuff is you just use your hand. And that just goes round like that. Now we're going to Carmarthenshire to visit a garden owned by Bob and Ranvig Wallace, who are amateurs, but have a huge amount of knowledge and passion for a distinct group of plants.
It's hard to believe that this all started when, as a 4-year-old, I went into the local churchyard and picked all the tulips.
I'll bet your grandma was upset.
Then I joined the Alpine Garden Society, went to a couple of talks, and I think you came along and you were hooked as well.
By that time, we had a pretty small garden. Ranvig got interested in these small plants, alpines. So we thought, well, what better, small plants for a small garden?
The collection has grown and grown over the last 50 years until it is what it is today.
Since, what, the 1980s?
Yes.
We've been travelling widely all over the world looking at bulbs in the wild. And it is absolutely phenomenal to see huge numbers of what are reckoned to be pretty rare species in cultivation growing in vast numbers on mountain hillsides in Iran or in Uzbekistan or in Morocco or wherever.
And also it gives you a lot of hints as to how to grow them, what conditions they need in cultivation when you see what they're coping with in the wild.
Yeah. All the greenhouses are absolutely full of plants in pots now because we like to exhibit what we've got as well. 6 greenhouses, 2 polytunnels. Got the show on Saturday.
Yes.
I thought we might start thinking about some of the specials that we might have to take. How about that?
Yeah, that's not bad, is it? Cyclamen sudabirica.
You remember going up into the wild in the Amarnas Mountains where Turkey and Syria join?
Yeah.
Warm, quite humid woodland.
This is a particularly good form, isn't it, with these dark pink flowers, although I do like the pale pink ones as well, I have to say. But
I like them all.
this is the more common one in the wild, isn't it?
Yes. The botanists had a real field day with that, didn't they? Because they used to be Chionodoxa, and now they're Scillas.
And like all the bulbs, it responds well to a nice free-draining compost and a bit of care and attention when it's coming into growth.
Easy, but spectacular.
Yeah.
Lovely.
And we now need something a bit taller and a different colour. Maybe a yellow narcissus would make the 3 look nice.
I think I've got just the thing. I have to go to the other greenhouse to get it.
OK.
OK.
Hurry up, then.
How about that?
That's looking good.
That's a really nice hybrid, that.
So this is a form of Narcissus triandrus, the angel's tears, because of the shape of the flower, with the corona hanging down and these petals swept back like that. And it's a really elegant plant.
So do you reckon that would go nicely with those two?
I do, yes, yeah. And I think it needs lifting up a little bit so the flowers show above the 2 other ones in front.
This is Iris Sindpers, which is actually a hybrid between 2 Turkish species. A big, tall blue one and a little tiny one about sort of, you know, the sort of sizes of these here. I think it might go to the show. It's a matter of what we think on Friday. We may even take it on Saturday and decide not to. Depends on the condition of the flowers. We've grown it for years, so we have to be very, very careful about watering, and to water just in the pot and not in the plant. And that's probably true of a lot of things, actually, that watering is the crucial thing. For example, this one, you see the leaves are forming a sort of a cup. And if you get water down into that cup, which in the wild probably happens naturally, but the plant dries up very quickly. Here, with the humidity that we have here in West Wales, it doesn't dry up. You get rots that go down into the bulb, and all of a sudden, the bulb's dead.
Well, but my particular favourite is this one here, which is Corydalis maracandica. It occurs in two colour forms, one yellow and one purple. And as you can see, this one seems to be a mixture of the two, which makes it really appealing. The Alpine house has got very good ventilation. You can see running down each side of the greenhouse, there are these louver windows which are open all the time. The air still flows over the plants and keeps them healthy. These plants are definitely for greenhouse growth. They would be temperature hardy outside, but they certainly wouldn't be rain hardy. So there's no point to trying these out in the open garden. They just wouldn't survive.
We're here in the middle of February. It's freezing cold outside. It's in low single figures. It's snowed overnight. Yet I can come into the greenhouse and see all sorts of things growing, flowering. There's loads and loads of colour in here.
And of course, once you've got this big collection of plants, you want other people to see them. So what better way of exhibiting your plants than going to various Alpine Garden Society shows and putting them on the show bench?
You mean you like to show off?
Well, a little bit of that. But,
Yes. And there's actually quite a bit of competition as well, so it's, you know, it's a lot of fun.
It's been a very long day because we had to get up early to get here on time. We then had to unload the car with all the heavy boxes that we have to carry in. And then they all have to be placed on the benches. They have to be labelled, arranged in their classes.
Picked over to make sure there's no dead flowers or dead foliage.
I just want to soak up the kind of excellence of horticulture, really, all these gorgeous plants, the sort of things that you never get to see anywhere else.
There are some amazing plants here and just amazing examples and an opportunity to find new gems that we want to grow.
If you're into plants, and even if you're not, you might get into plants if you come to a place like this, because you'll see something and think, right, what is that? I want to grow it. How do you do it?
It's such a fun day out. I mean, not only do you have all of these lovely people, you've got all of the nurseries, and then you can come and see old friends, new friends. I'm very proud that I've managed to get thirds. This particular one is a Hepatica nobilis, and yeah, it opened out last night, so I was very, very chuffed that it was actually making it for the show. Basically, it's just tiny plants. I love them.
I've received a first on one of my plants. It's a gymnospermum, which is in the Berberidacea family. Exciting, they bring intense colours through what can be quite a boring time of year. I think that's what I love about the shows. It brings the best of what's looking good at this time of year.
Well, we got a first with all of our Corydalis. These are all Corydalis with a big tuber under the ground, radiate out the stem, and if you don't try and block the growth of the stems horizontally, they all come up around the edge of the pot. So when we're potting them, we put in barriers to make them come up in the middle of the pot as well as round the edge, and that gives you a nice flat-topped. Otherwise, I mean, in the wild, you can often find a plant will be this much across, but there's that little tuber under the ground somewhere under a stone.
Can I have an ice pack for my black-eyed peas?
Our first show, I think, must have been 1972, when we were both students. And that's 54 years ago. Between us, we've been growing for more than a century, if you like.
And we're still going strong.
What do you think? What do you think? Up? Now, don't go on the border. Good boy. You just stay there. One of the things that I increasingly respect is the way that there's this deep reservoir of knowledge amongst people who have devoted their lives to plants, and I think it's something that we should treasure. Now, I know that none of those experts would think that the spring garden here is particularly special because none of the plants are particularly special. But at this time of year, as we come into spring, it holds centre stage here at Longmeadow. And now coming through are the hellebores and the snowflakes, the leucosium. We have the tete-a-tete daffodils, and I can see that the imperial fritillaries are starting to grow. So this slither of Longmeadow is certainly the best thing in the garden. And then, by about mid-May, it's done its stuff. It's over until next year. Come on up. Right, what I'm setting up is a new framework to support a new batch of raspberries that I'm growing. This is a new plot near the greenhouse, near water. This is going to be our new soft fruit bed. We've got strawberries at that end. I've planted autumn fruiting raspberries, but what I'm planting today are summer fruiting raspberries. And these fruit on canes that are grown the previous year. So the ones I plant today won't give me any fruit until next summer. Now, if you're planting raspberries, and now is a good time to do it, and they're summer fruiting, they need support. It can be a trellis, it can be a fence, but I like this wired system. So, what I've got are wires attached to tensioners at either end. And this is quite important because if you just loop the wire around, inevitably it gets slacker and then you can't tighten it. And you want the wires to be reasonably tight. So just hook them onto there and then tighten it up. And by the way, these are 8-foot posts driven 2 foot into the ground. So I've got 6 foot of height. These could easily stay in position for 10, 15 years and absolutely necessary to have into place before you start planting. Having walked all over the soil putting up the wires, I'm just loosening it. Now, these brown sticks will bear fruit, but they're two quite different varieties. There's Glen Ample, which is a trusted variety. I've grown it many times before. It's very disease resistant. It copes very well with wet conditions compared to other raspberries and is delicious. And that will crop from sort of the end of June to early August. And this is bare root, so that needs to go in the ground first. In a pot, looking very undistinguished, I've got Malling Admiral. And I've chosen this, although I've not grown it before, because it's disease resistant, coping with all kinds of soil, and a delicious fruit. Now, you can see there are 5 stems in the pot. Those are 5 separate plants, and you need to space them out at least around about 18 inches apart. I'm not actually going to plant these now. I'm going to plant the bare root ones, because bare root plants, they're not in a pot, they're not in any compost, so you need to get them in the ground as quickly as you can, ideally the same day. Here are a bundle of bare root plants, and you can see there are the roots. Now, if it's going to be a slow process, have a bucket of water nearby and stick them in. Don't let the roots dry out, and that is really, really important. I'm not going to plant them in the ground, I'm going to plant them on the ground. So if I put that like that, I'm just going to bring the soil up around them. Raspberries have very shallow roots that grow sideways, not very deep, and they really hate sitting in very wet soil. However, if you've got free draining soil, that's fine. That's okay, you can plant them normally. I will water them in, and I will tie them, because by tying them, it gives them stability while the roots get established. Once the roots are established, these can then be cut back. Right, one more row of Glen Ample, and a couple of rows there, and I'll have 4 rows of summer fruiting raspberries, which will be ready to harvest in July 2027. There's forward planning for you. Now, Arit has been to Kew. Most of us go there and walk around and visit the glass houses and see the planting, and it's very much a sort of a public park as well as one of the world's greatest botanic gardens. But she has been allowed behind doors that very few of us ever go through.
Hidden deep within the Royal Botanic Gardens at Kew lies a world almost no one ever sees. Closed to visitors, this secret tropical nursery is a plant emergency room for some of the planet's rarest plants and has become one of the most biodiverse corners on Earth. The work carried out here is a battle for survival, and every second counts. Behind these doors are over 10,000 plant species. Many of them are rare, threatened, or of vital conservation concern. But today I've been given exclusive access to learn more about these critically endangered plants and to meet the specialists that are working around the clock to save them. Within the nursery are an incredible 21 separate climatic zones split into 4 groups: orchids, temperate, moist tropics and arid. Carlos Magdalena is a senior botanical horticulturalist. He is known for his remarkable success in bringing the world's most threatened plants back from the brink of extinction. Hey, Carlos. This is proper laboratory. I feel like I'm somewhere really sci-fi. What work are you doing here?
Well, in this tank alone, there is about 50 different types of water lilies. We have also the smallest water lily in the world, which almost went extinct about a decade ago.
So this is the smallest water lily in the world?
Yeah.
Why is it not in the wild? What happened to it going nearly extinct?
The habitat where it grows is probably smaller than this tank. So it was a matter of time before something happens, you know? There was only 4 plants left, and they were here in Kew, which was quite scary. Trying to grow the seedlings to maturity was almost impossible.
Right.
So I managed to come up with a way of cultivating these ones from seed. All you have to do is grow them very, very shallow,
Yeah.
so that when the seedling germinates, it touches the air. It's things like this that make a whole difference, right? From those 4 plants, we produce lots. We have here more than 100 now, but also we have sent them to many different places. There is growers in America, Asia, Africa, Europe, you name it. So it's very well secure out of the habitat. Saved by the bell, really.
One of Carlos's biggest successes was the integral role he played in saving the plant known as Café Marron. Café Marron was thought to be extinct until a single surviving tree was spotted by a schoolboy in 1979 in its native island of Rodrigues in Mauritius. So this has had a real challenge, hasn't it? There's been a real story behind it then.
Yeah, it has taken us almost a whole century to work out how to save this.
Wow.
It was not seen in the wild for more than 40 years. So then the last specimen was found, and then a cutting was flown to Kew.
Right.
From that plant, we managed to root a plant. For more than 25 years, not a single seed was produced. And then even though we had many plants, they were all clonal because they were all from the same cutting.
Yes.
If you take a cutting, it is cloning the plant, and then it will carry the same problem, that it flowers, but it doesn't produce seeds. And if you want to reintroduce the plant in the wild, you will need to have a plant which is able to reproduce by itself. There was plenty of chances for us to try new things. And then one day, bingo, I got a fruit with nice seeds.
Which is incredible.
Yeah.
So you're the plant whisperer. You brought it back from extinction near enough.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
amazing. Why is it so important to keep these plants on our planet? What would happen if we were to lose plants like this?
Well, first of all, every species has kind of like a link with other species. So they are all part of our ecosystem. But more importantly for us humans, they are the main reason we can get medicines. Everything you eat comes from a plant or something that eats plants. And therefore, protecting plants is really essential and important to humankind.
I think it's amazing work that's been done over a long time. So long may you continue to be keeping plants alive, Carlos.
Thank you.
Yeah. Globally, one of the world's most threatened plant groups are arid plants. Tough enough to survive deserts, they are now facing unprecedented danger and need urgent help. Tropical nursery manager Paul Rees is on a mission to save them. Paul, it's like being in a different world. All of these plants, what sort of challenges are they facing out in their own environment?
The plants in this zone are species that come from very dry conditions. Often when we think of climate change, we think of a warming climate, and we immediately think that arid plants are going to be able to cope with that. But often they're sort of living sort of at the extremes already, and if the conditions get hotter and drier, there's lots of pressures that cause problems. Some of them are very rare as well, so they'll only exist on one slope or one or two slopes within a region, and that has lots of implications, where if they're overexploited or there's change in land use, species can go to endangered quite quickly.
Is there anything particular that you've been working on recently?
The plants we've got here in front of us, these are conophytums, succulent plants. They are endemic to the northwest of South Africa into Namibia, and they sort of exist nowhere else naturally. When the conditions become hotter and drier in the spring, they start drying out and form these papery sheaths. So by midsummer, the plants all look like they're completely dead. And that's sort of extremely beneficial for the plants. In the deserts, there's a very high diversity of tortoise. Oh. And the tortoise will get all of their moisture during the dry season by eating plants. So if you, as a conophytum, look like you're dead, the tortoise ignores you and eats something else. So they're very, very interesting, well, at least to me. This is one of the group that sort of captured the attention of people, which has led to overexploitation in habitat, mainly through poaching. And species, through these mass poaching events, have gone to critically endangered, if not extinct, overnight.
Wow.
And the estimate currently from that region is sort of about 1.9 million plants stolen from habitat since 2020. Our goal is to ensure we've got backup collections. Conserving a species where it's supposed to be is priority one. And then we're also looking to ensure that there's decent seed collections of very vulnerable species in our seed bank to try and reduce, if not stop species from going extinct.
What advice can you give to people in terms of when they're buying their house plants?
It's fantastic in many ways. You know, to see people growing plants is amazing, and more people interested in the natural world and more people growing plants is important. But I think understanding that when we are buying plants, we need to just make sure that we're buying them from places that are reputable.
You can really feel the power of plants here, their beauty, their resilience, and their importance to all living things. The work going on behind the scenes here is all about passion meeting purpose, saving plants and safeguarding the diversity of these plants for future generations to come.
Well, I do know just how vital the work they do at Kew is, and it's a privilege to get a chance to see it in action. Much more upfront and available to all of us are the colours you get from flowering bulbs at this time of year. And every October and November, I make a real point of planting as many as I can into pots. And this is the result. We've got various daffodils, we've got hyacinth, the wonderful little iris, crocus. It lasts a few weeks, and just when we come through a long winter, boy, does it make your heart sing. Now, that's going full blast, and hopefully that will keep going for a little bit longer. What I do need to do now is prepare for summer, and particularly late summer. And what I've got in boxes are dahlias. And dahlias are an absolute essential plant for Longmeadow from the middle of July through till November. Now, these have been stored all winter in a dark place, wrapped in newspaper, which we found is a really good way of keeping them at the right humidity levels. So this is a variety called Rothsay Reveller, which is a kind of raspberry ripple of a flower. And you can look, lovely tubers. Now, what I'm looking for here is to see if any have rotted, if they've got too dry, if the mice have been nibbling at them, maybe there was a slug in there with them having a go. So just check them over. Feel the tubers. Are they firm? If they're soft and squidgy, that's not good, and you need to cut them off. And fatter and the sort of more firm the tubers are, the more flowers they will produce. I have to say, that's a very nice group of tubers. So at this stage, there are 3 things I can do. The first is to put them back into storage for another month, because it's too early to plant out dahlias yet. They're not frost hardy, so I wouldn't plant these out until mid-April at the earliest. The second thing to do is to pot them up and grow them on in a frost-free place, but with light, so that when you plant them out, they've got growth a foot tall, and that will give you flowers about a month earlier. And we tend to do that with most of ours. And the third thing to do is exactly what I am going to do now. And that is to pot them up, but specifically to produce cuttings. Now, any old pot will do, as long as it's big enough. Recycled pots. Put some compost in. It doesn't have to be anything special, but it does have to have reasonable drainage. So you might want to add a bit of perlite or grit. Now, let's get the level right. Yeah. When you plant dahlias in the garden, you want to plant them deep. And the deeper they are, the better they are protected from cold weather. When you're putting them in a pot, the cuttings are taken where they come from the tuber. So if it's buried, you can't get at it. So we'll put that like that in there, and then just put a little bit of soil around them, but not burying it completely. Right, the important thing is to give this heat, water, and light, and that will produce new growth. If you've got a windowsill above a radiator, that's absolutely fine. If you've got a greenhouse, that's better, and ideally a heated mat in a greenhouse, and that's perfect. And the new growth will appear after about a week, and the cuttings will be ready when they're about sort of 2 to 6 inches long, and that's usually 3 to 4 weeks, and I'll do that with you when they're ready. If you're not worried about taking cuttings, then just put it somewhere frost-free and light, and you'll get growth ready to plant out round about the end of April. Now, we're going to a garden near Maidstone, in Kent, where Cathy Smythe and Gary Cattermole have created an exotic paradise for their dogs.
The tropical plants here transport you to another place, and it's so wonderful to just have that illusion of maybe you could be anywhere in the world, and that's all done by plants. They're really tactile, you can touch them, you can hug the trachycarpus, which is a little bit weird, I know, but, you know, sometimes I just give them a bit of a squeeze. And you don't tend to do that with cottage garden plants so much.
We've never been to the tropical islands of anywhere, so it's nice to kind of drag it to rural England.
In 2017, we applied to adopt a setter, and that's how Bowie came into our lives. He's a calm, beautiful, peaceful, joyful boy. After Bowie came along, we realised that we weren't going to stop there. Dotter is our ball of energy. She's just a delight. Then Melly, and then our baby, Mojo. So now our little rescue family is complete. We wanted to give them a space that was just beautiful, considering they'd had troubled backgrounds. We didn't want to restrict them in any way. Before we knew it, we'd thrown 10 tons of sand down and we were calling it the Maldives.
It's been a great space for the dogs to rehabilitate, and they've got their own little routines, places they love to go in the garden.
Some of them feel comfortable going up higher, or they could bury down low, or they could just sniff around and really enjoy themselves. It fills your heart to see just how content and happy they are. This is where it all began in the Maldives, with one raised bed with a formium that was a gift from a friend who had moved and didn't want it anymore. So thank you, Dawn. We called this formium Wavy Davy. Very, very resilient plant, very robust. It can take a bashing from the dogs. Fantastic. Love it. We also had our cordyline, which is up here. And this is a Torbay Dazzler that we call Miss Tina Turner for obvious reasons, of the spiky, groovy hair. She came home in the footwell of our car, but over the years has just shot up. And yeah, this is where it all began. A lot of the planting is quite sturdy, because the first thing we say is, can it take a bashing from the dogs? Don't normally assume that you can have 4 quite exuberant dogs and a wonderful space for yourself as well, and I think that we've actually proved that you can here.
Kathy's excellent at remembering the plants' names. I'm absolutely terrible.
It's easier to remember the names of things when you genuinely have an interest, and Gary is the...
Plantus potus is what I can remember.
Potus. I absolutely adore this palm. Look at it. It's like it's having a really bad hair day. This is a Washingtonia, so it's a cross between a Robusta and a Filifera, and they call it a filibuster. So what you'd normally see these maybe out in Beverly Hills, they're called sky duster palms, right up into the air. But unfortunately, they're not hardy for a severe winter. So, as it is one of my ultimate favourites, if we do have a brutal winter, we'll build a cage for it and we'll protect it so it can just grow up to the sky. As the garden's evolved over the years, we've added more plants and they develop. You kind of grow fond of them in a weird way, so the plants become part of the family too. Look at this beautiful, hairy, fibrous trunk. I love it. I can't stop touching it. It's from the Trachycarpus family. It's a Fortunii. I like to make little pitter pockets out of the fibre here and then wedge a bromeliad in, an air plant or some succulents, just to make it a little bit more blingy, which is lovely. Then we have, same again, Trachycarpus family, but this is our Wagnerianus. Easy to tell the difference because these palms are really quite stiff and they are more suited for windy areas. These are boys and this one's a girl, and I know this one's a girl because you can see the seeds here. So once the seeds have matured, they'll fall, and then over the years you'll find yourself with seedlings like we have here, which are potentially lots of little palm trees, which are actually crosses between a Fortunii and a Wagnerianus. Look how resilient these plants are, because you think they're being stamped by the dogs day in, day out. They take all the frosts, they take any snow, super hardy.
Because the garden was originally a car park with loads of hardcore, we have to get a groundbreaker in for any small plant.
And every time I'll visit the nursery and I think, I really like that. And you can see Gary's face just dropping because he knows that he's going to have to get the groundbreaker out, and that's going to be fizzy hands for the next...
Still aching from the time before.
3 weeks. So here we have the staple for every tropical style garden, I believe, which is the hardy banana, Musa basjoo. These guys add so much to a tropical garden. You look at the leaves, they're fantastic. They're like big sails waving in the wind.
when the weather's bad and the winds come in and the rain hammers down, the leaves tear and shred and they look like gorgeous feathers. It's just something really magical. This one here has flowered this year. If you see up there, you can see the remnants of the flower and the tiny bananas, which aren't at all edible, but this will die. If I move this, you can kind of see it becoming a little bit fragile at the base. But the good news is that it will pop babies up, or pups as we call them. So we lose this one, and then we have more replacing it. I get quite emotional when I think about the garden, really, because it's come a long way. It was designed for these guys here. They've come such a long way too. And it just gives so much joy.
It's a dream come true to have these incredible animals with us in a lovely environment like this. We're so lucky.
Very lucky.
Come on. It's good to see another version of a dog garden. And you would like that, Ned. You would. To have that sort of exotic paradise within one garden, fabulous for people and fabulous for dogs. Now, I'm going to do a job which really needs doing fairly soon. It's cutting back late flowering clematis. These are group 3 clematis, they're sometimes referred to, and all of them flower on new growth. And you can see the new growth, it's appearing. And if you don't cut them back, you get a lot of bare growth at the bottom of the plant and then a mass of new shoots at the top with the flowers on. But because they flower on new shoots, you can prune back all last year's growth, knowing there will be new growth to carry new flowers. And at the same time, it will encourage extra new growth, therefore extra flowers. So it's win-win. What I do with clematis that's growing in a border is I don't take it right to the ground. I take it about a foot or 2 above the ground so that the growth isn't competing with all this other growth that's going to come around them. However, if you've got this on an open fence or by a door, you can cut nice and low. Leave 2 buds. So if we take this tendril here, there's some buds there, and there's some right down there. It just means if for any reason one set of buds gets damaged or frosted or whatever it might be, you've got another. And then everything above it is now redundant and can be thrown away, even though there's new growth on there. Now, at this point, it's worth just inspecting your supports. And if in doubt, now is the time to change them. These have lasted about 3 or 4 years. That's all I expect from hazel in the garden, particularly when it's been so wet. So these can come out. Oh yeah, that's broken. So it shows they needed doing. I mean, as a rule of thumb, if they break like that, they're no good. They're not going to be strong enough to hold the weight of a clematis. A big, strong clematis full of flower in August or September needs pretty stout support. However, you can put them against a trellis, you can put them against a wall, as long as they're reasonably strongly supported. The main thing when you're growing any clematis is they do not like to be dry. So if you're planting at this time of year, add a little bit of compost or actually any organic matter, not so much to feed it, but to soak up moisture and hold moisture. And I'm really pushing them in as hard as I can. Right, that's a good job done. And if you've got late flowering clematis, then I do recommend that you get on with it and do it as soon as possible. But if you haven't got any late flowering clematis, here are some other jobs that you can do this weekend. It's time to begin sowing tender annuals. This is something that I like to do in stages across the coming weeks. I'm beginning by sowing Tithonias, the Mexican sunflower with their intense orange petals. Sprinkle the seed thinly on compost in a seed tray, cover them over, water them, ideally from below by sitting them in a tray, and then put them somewhere warm to germinate. And then, in a few weeks' time, the seedlings will emerge. Now that they've finished flowering but still got lush foliage, is the perfect time to lift and move snowdrops. You can either spread an existing group by lifting them and dividing them and then replanting them locally, or take them to a new location and plant them there. Either way, they will scarcely notice they've been moved and they'll reflower with renewed vigour. Chitting potatoes, particularly for first earlies, is the best way to get the earliest possible harvest. In principle, it simply means taking the seed potatoes and placing them on end in some kind of container, either an egg box or I'm using a seed tray, so that one shoot is exposed to light. Put them in a frost-free but sunny place, and that shoot will become knobbly and hard, but when you plant it, it'll be primed to burst into growth. I think Ned is quite relaxed. I sat down here for a minute, and 2 seconds later he was on my lap, and now he's flat out. But it has been a wonderful day. I can't tell you how nice it's been to spend the whole day outside in the sunshine. And looking forward to so much more, because of course, not only is the garden looking better every day, but there is quite a lot to do. And in the end, that combination of enjoying the garden and gardening is what makes it so special. But that's it for today, and I will see you back here at Longmeadow next time. So until then, bye-bye.